Hello, everybody. Happy holidays from Spirit of 420. I am Spirit of 420 because everything I do is so 420. Holidays are tough. I was supposed to come on Christmas, or said I would. Ended up not really being able to do it. Although I did think of y'all, so it just wasn't, how do you say, it wasn't in the cards. Christmas night, I was pretty whipped by 7 o'clock and passed out well too early to do it. So just didn't have the energy. So this is xenitalia because it looks like the genitalia of a xenomorph, right? There you go. So this was a gift. And what's nice here, I'll try to show you. It does sit up, so it's got a nice little way about it. Odd carb, though. Very odd carb, right in the center. So I would have expected it on one of the sides. Anywho, got a lot of movies to cover tonight. From the beginning of the Christmas break, starting, what was it? Starting with Violent Night, starring David Harbour. My wife and I over the Christmas holiday pretty much went on I guess what you could easily call a movie binge. And I think I've told y'all before, I have this unlimited thing. So not only do I get all the movies that Netflix and Hulu and all those things have to offer, but right now we have this, and this is probably the last month because we can no longer afford it. That's a whole nother story. But essentially it's all the movies you can see. So knowing that it was our last month, we decided to go to a shit ton of movies. So let's see. Out of 9 of these, 6 of those were in the theater. And out of 9, funny enough, it was a pretty decent movie season because out of the 9, there's really only one that sucks. Right, so that was pretty good. We did see, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we'll start off with Violent Night. Saw that one in the theater, but it was also, pretty sure we went to go see RPX, which is the same thing as IMAX for those of you who don't know. So this has a shit ton of people. David Harbour, John, oh my God, Leguizamo. I always mispronounce his name. Beverly D'Angelo making another appearance on a Christmas movie. Hadn't done that since Christmas Vacation. We'll talk about that in a minute. Alex Hassel, who I don't really know, and that's really that's the big names in it. First of all, let me start by saying, if you enjoy Game of Thrones, then you can handle whatever this movie throws at you, graphically speaking. You can't imagine that a movie called Violent Nights is not going to get bloody. Okay. But it's that kind of bloody that you're okay with. Number one. Number two, I don't want to take anything away from this film because it is such a must see. So, one thing I'm going to start doing too is IMDb. I'll give you what they give it. They give it a 6.8. Rotten Tomatoes has it as a 73%. And Common Sense gives it a 4 out of 5. So that's scoring somewhere, let's say, between a 68 and an 80. If you're doing it my way, I go by 100, just the old school 0 to 100, 100 being the best, 60 is a fail, or 70 and above is good. Anything below 70, technically speaking, is a fail. But I think I'm going to do the curb at 60. So anything below 60 in regards to the flick dick is a fail. Doesn't mean that it wasn't worthy to see, though. I've had quite a few 40s, 50s, even 30s that you got to see it. You just don't need to pay for it. That's where the failure is. Don't ask money for this film. That's what I mean by failure. So back to Violent Night. Incredible movie. Right out of the gate, I'm going to tell you, I give it an 87. It was action-packed. It wasn't slow. It also gave a whole new lore to Santa Claus and where he came from and all that. This is their version of Santa Claus, which let's just say was not, squeaky clean and beautiful like A Boy Called Christmas, which I'm going to watch next year. Did not watch that last year and didn't watch it this year because I just found out about it a couple of days ago. Somehow I missed that, and I'm a big Christmas movie kind of guy. But regardless, I will be watching A Boy Called Christmas next year. But this one was not fantasy. It was like Game of Thrones meets Santa Claus, period. Magical, awesome, great acting by everybody, even the little girl. She was cute. It was everything that I want. To me, a perfect movie is when they give you everything you expect and a little bit more. And that's exactly what Violent Night did. I left there feeling, honestly, extremely satisfied. And couldn't wait. My thought was, I can't wait to own it, and I can't wait to be watching this every Christmas for the rest of my life. And I will. For as many years as I'm here, that one is now automatic traditional Christmas movie for me. But I got about 50, so what are you going to do? Pardon you. So, on to the next one. So, Violent Night, 87. The next one I'm going to cover is a movie called Troll. This is another fantastic movie out of, where is it? Is it Norway? Is that where it's happening? Yeah, Norway. These guys are fucking making some good movies. Let me just start off by saying that. And they're making some good action movies. Some good fucking old school, action cheese that you want to see. And just like, fuck, dude, I am a lover of King Kong, Godzilla. I think those are all. I mean, when Pacific Rim hit, I was the first one to want to go see it and be there because I love big monster movies, right? There was a movie called Troll Hunters about 10 years ago, so maybe 11. It was awesome. It was also in Norway. So one thing that I figured out and found out from this, and part of it they really spell out to you right away, is that the troll lore and mythology is centered around what seems to be centered around Norway. I'm going to check into it more, but from what I can gather, everything that I've read so far, it originates there in Norway. So this is their little, beast. Well, he's not little. This is, very specific to Norwegian. So first of all, let me say this. It is subtitled, and if you watch it dubbed, that's just going to make it comical. I don't do dubbed. I watched it, read it. You don't have to read a whole lot, folks. It's a fucking monster movie. Most of the time it's run. You don't have to read that shit. You know what I mean? It's pretty easy. So nonetheless, looks like we got a comment. I'm sorry, I missed it. Who we got here? Hey, what's up, man? Love the fucking name. Gotta tell you. Love the name. So Troll, going back to it, being that I am, as the investigator here, I will say again, I love monster movies. So, Monsters in Love, I thought that was good. I thought the bad one though was the one with Mila Jovovich or whatever her name is, Monster Hunter, I think was the name of it. I watched it. It was a fail. I would not have fucking paid for it, and I'm glad I didn't. But I'm always going to go in with an open mind, right? So to give you an idea of where, obviously, IMDb folks say this is a fail. You got it as a 5.8 out of 10. Now, what's funny is you go to Rotten Tomatoes, they have it 88% fresh. It's kind of a mixed signal. But then when you go to Letterboxd, that's just another one here. Letterboxd is a 2.6. But Google users on the whole give it a 72% like the movie. So, Netflix Troll. First of all, the chick in it was good. The mythology behind it was good. The fucking dad was hysterical. Honestly, couldn't get enough of him. And it was just a flat out good time. My wife and I started, and literally, I don't even think when we started, I think we were planning on just watching it for a minute and see how it was. We were hooked, man. We just sat like, I don't know if you ever do this, but like we were in our bedroom, and normally when we're in our bedroom, we lay down on the bed, relax and watch a movie in the evening. But this is one where we just sat on the fucking end of the bed for 2 hours and watched the movie, which almost just sat there doing dabs, watching Troll. It was great. But again, back to it. It was fast paced. It didn't take any time. The story was righteous. I don't remember a whole lot of plot holes at all, if there were any at all. There's always one or two. So when you watch it, just remember I said there's always one or two. Every fucking movie has them. Nobody's perfect. But overall, I give it a 74. It was a great movie for what it was. It's exactly what it needed to deliver. And what I mean by that is I was entertained for an hour and a half, 2 hours, Excuse me. Excuse y'all. Like I said, it's holiday season, so you got to expect a bunch of movies are going to come out. Usually they're very disappointing, but there was only a couple of duds. In fact, I'll say there was really only one shitty movie, and we'll get to it in a minute. But next on the list, oh shit. By the way, I can't tell you these people's names. So they're from Denmark. The only one I can even fucking pronounce, quite frankly, is a guy named Billy Campbell. Made Shogar Peterson, although he was good. He was the military guy. And then Ian Marie Willman. She's the main star. She was awesome. The dad was a guy named Dennis Store. I mean, again, I can't pronounce these names. They're Norwegian, and I don't know that language, so that's what it is. All right, so Devotion. Devotion came out, let's see, not too long ago. It just came out recently. I can't remember the exact date, but let's just go real quick, and we'll give you a few of the scores that we have here at the top of the page. So IMDb has it scoring in at a 7 flat, 80% fresh, and Fandango has a 92%. Google gives it 89% users like it. The movie was fantastic, but really, it's hard for these to fucking go wrong, folks. It's why I didn't mind going to it. It's a true story about the first black airman. What the fuck? I mean, unless you make it like a joke, it's going to be good. And this dude, I don't know him. I think this is the first movie I've seen him in, but I did see he's going to be another. Jonathan Majors played Jesse Brown, and he was awesome. Glenn Powell. I just want to talk about that for a minute. This guy has had what a fucking year, right? 2022, he was the wingman to Maverick and the wingman to the first Black Airman. That dude has had a fucking year, just quietly out of nowhere, boom, two big ass fucking movies where he's essentially playing the same character, except one's a total dick and one's like totally righteous. Really fucking funny, dude. Man, yep, there you go. What's up, Tommy? I like what you said here. I'll just flash it up on the screen real quick. What do we got going on? We got, I love the fucking name, Flesh Dildos. Yep. Yep, maybe that is you, Tommy Chong. Just so everybody catches up with what's going on here. And you are on YouTube, right, Tom? Yeah, you are. Okay. I was just seeing if maybe you were over on Twitch. Stream on Twitch at the same time. So devotion. Righteous. So just to say this, having been the year of 2022, we had Maverick to look at when you're talking about fucking dogfights, right? The air battle scenes in Devotion, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me and be like, look, Maverick was the better film. It's newer technology. That's fucking great and fine and dandy. But when you go back to the Korean War and look at what these dudes were flying with and what they were having to deal with, it is amazing, man. These cats, this one particular plane, and I cannot remember the model of the plane. I do apologize, but they talk about it. Like, first of all, this is the plane that they all flew. The wings did these fold up, right? So when it's sitting still, the wings are folded up, and then they drop down like this when it right before they're gonna take flight, right? And they land on aircraft carriers. And these aircraft carriers, we're talking about old aircraft carriers, not the aircraft carriers today that literally carry a full fucking runway practically. Mm-mm. We're talking about a much smaller aircraft carrier. And the plane was designed in such a way that the pilot cannot see the front of the fucking plane. So when he's piloting, it's like you can't even see the fucking propeller, dude. I mean, how insane is that? Think about that for a minute. I didn't know that. So these guys, without even being able to see their own fucking plane, right? They have to come in and catch a hook. Dude, it's crazy. And here's on top of all that. If that wasn't enough, the acceleration is so touchy on these planes that if they get too nervous and pull up too quickly, they literally do one of these just right into the fuck, like, you know, I mean, like fast as fucking shit. They showed one doing it, and I'm sure that they made it as realistic as possible, which they try to do. And they even said, like, before it happened, they were like, you know, in the blink of an eye, you'll lose control and over accelerate and flip the paint, you know, do an immediate dive. But when you're merely, you know, 20 yards off the fucking top of the ocean, that's immediate disaster. And that's what these guys had to do. Damn near the impossible, man. Just incredible. And I learned, you know, anytime a movie teaches you about things, and what I mean by that is gives you some history, they're still fighting to get this guy's body back. They're still fighting to get his remains back here in America. Jesse Brown. That was an incredible story. I give that a solid 85. That was to me, and I know I never finished this, but the dogfight scenes that were in this were as incredible, if not more incredible, because you know what these guys were up against. And you also keep in mind that this was like the first black dude to do it, you know, and it wasn't like other situations. And I'm not saying there's been a lot of these, but there's other situations where it's like when that desegregation happens, it's not just one, it's, you know, it's usually a few come in at a time. But there was like nobody else. There was other black sailors but nobody else flying planes. You know what I mean? That's what was I thought incredible. So, needless to say, I was blown by it and I was touched. And I want to touch on that for a minute. So the first three I've already talked about. Yeah, I know. Violent Night, Devotion, and Troll. And there's 6 others. Not one of these movies, and obviously it's just the time frame, but not one of these movies did not have some kind of extreme symbolism that was a direct parallel with what I'm dealing with in my life with the death of my son. I have many friends who have multiple, like almost every single one of my friends who I talk to has someone who's died in the last 2.5 months that was close to them. I have some very close friends. Their father recently died. I have another close friend. His mother-in-law died. I mean, it's the list fucking goes on and on. It really is. It's fucking stupid, right? But what blew me away is not one of these movies, even the one that fucking sucked an asshole, not one of these movies did I go through and not see or have at least one, but it was actually like multiple parallels for each one, right? And it was really, as y'all know, I believe that everything happens for a reason. So even as something as what you call trivial as watching a film, there's plenty of signs there. There's plenty of opportunities for the universe, God, karma, whatever you want to call it, to reach out and smack you in the face and say, see? So there you go. All right. Next is a real piece of crap. Disney either fucking hits a home run or they strike out. It's no in between with them. There's no like, base hits or anything like that. So Disney recently came out with a movie called Strange Worlds. Well, this movie was nearly god awful. To give you some of the stars in it, I don't know who this kid is. I think this is a relatively new dude, but Jabaki Young White, not familiar with him. But then you got Jake Gyllenhaal, Dennis Quaid, Gabriel Union, Lucy Liu, Alan Tudyk, whatever his name is. Just a ton of people. Okay. This movie cost them $66 million. I want y'all to keep that in mind. So first, I'll give you the other ratings. 5.3 on IMDb. So already there, it's failing. Believe it or not, I don't know what the fuck's going on over at Tomatoes, but everything's fresh to them. So 73% fresh. That is totally wrong. Metacritic gives it a 65%. And then here's a good one too. I always like this one because this one probably has some of the largest numbers overall. Google users, 43% liked this movie. First of all, it was a dud. Just a dud. I want to start off by saying, once we went to computer animation, we gave up, cartoon walking like this and everybody, these ridiculous animations that they do. It literally felt like I was watching stuff that was drawn back in the 50s and 60s, simply put to computer animation. So now they were solid. Big noses. Dude, tired of that shit. Once we had Toy Story, we knew that we could have movies without that, right? That's why Disney bought Pixar. But this one was bad, and it over-exaggerated many times. Like, throughout the entire movie, it over-exaggerated. It also was just totally... it was foolish. And some of the places where you're like, something belonged... I'll give you one example, because I don't really think I'm taking it away of anything. But the main character, inside of the first 5 minutes of the story, we find out he's his dad's white, his mom's black, he's gay, and he's got a 3-legged dog. My wife and I were both like, could you have put any more token things of minorities? Like, I mean, what the fuck? is going on in the world today. Oh yeah, I got Avatar 2. It's coming. Yep. Trust me. We're going to talk about that one. Don't you sweat it, dildos. And I will talk plenty about it. So, but yeah, Strange Worlds, just to finish ripping the shit out of this film. At one point, the kid sees his grandfather. Kid 16 has never met his grandfather, meets his grandfather, and doesn't tell him he's gay, but just starts talking about his boyfriend. And his grandfather doesn't even acknowledge that he's gay. I don't even understand. Like, if I haven't seen you and I've never met you, I would still be like, oh, cool. What was that like? You know, what was it difficult coming out? What do your parents think? I would have fucking questions, man, to my grandson. You know, it didn't make sense. It was like, it was somehow like the grandfather just took it, ran with it, and didn't think twice about it. When his son wasn't gay, nobody else in his family was gay. This was in a made up world where there wasn't a whole lot of gay people. You could tell it was no different than here, where gay is kind of like accepted, but not by a lot of people, right? Or there's still a lot of people that don't accept it, I should say. Yeah. Dude, I told you it was fucking, it was insulting. Put it that way, dildos. It was honestly insulting. My wife and I don't even know why we stayed the whole thing, except for I'm just the kind of person to watch the whole act. Sometimes they'll make up for it. But the worst part about it, and again, I don't want to, well, fuck it. Spoiler alert. If you want to go see the film, don't. This whole fucking Strange World is supposedly on the back of a fucking turtle. That part I was okay with, but when they panned out, if you could imagine, imagine that this is the planet in which this was taking place on, right? The turtle took up this, like literally this much of the planet. If it moved and swam, it would rotate. I mean, like, we were like, that is so stupid. It couldn't possibly have been that big. It would go through its food supply in a day. Do you understand? Like, it would have made more sense if, fine. Let the fact that these people live on the back of a fucking turtle and don't know it for eons, let that be the case. But there should be like massive other turtles, and there be a huge fucking planet where the turtles are all like the size of fucking Australia, right? I could believe that if there was a turtle the size of Australia that works. Look at Australia. It exists, right? But not a turtle the size of Asia, Europe, and Africa all in one, and tell me that it hasn't wiped out its food supply in 1,000 years. It's fucking stupid. What is that? Is he somebody who rips movies? You got to answer that. Steven Crowder. Why that name sounds familiar? So yeah, by the end of it, needless to say, I wonder if my son. I think my son. Yeah, dude. Oh God, no, they don't. They don't address hemp at all. I'm trying to think if one does. What else do I have to review? If there was one. No, but one of the ones that I'm about to talk about next really did attack the state of humanity and where we were at. So anyway, Strange World. Let me finish this reaming. One of the worst movies I ever saw. Not there's sometimes there's a bad movie like Moondown. I call it Moonfall. That movie was so bad that it was honestly enjoyable to go see. In fact, I went to go see it with Skylar, and we just sat and laughed our ass off the whole time we were watching that movie, and went to see it purely because we knew it was like the cheesiest movie. I honestly thought Strange World might be decent, but from the previews, because it looked really cool, and it was just a complete letdown. The story went nowhere. It didn't even make sense, and then to end it on the back of a turtle, I give that fucking movie a 25. Complete waste of fucking time and effort. All right. So next, menu. I was thinking it was next. Oh man, we're gonna have fun with this one. So real quick, we'll get out the other reviews. IMDb gives it a solid 7.5, 7.5. Rotten Tomatoes says 89% fresh. They are correct there. Fandango gives it a 76%. And Google users, 84% of them like it. It stars quite a few people. Funny enough, what's his name? Ralph Fiennes is in it, but Leguizamo is in it also. Funny enough, he's in it. Anna Taylor-Joy. Taylor-Joy. That chick is showing up a lot now, and she's a hot little thing. Nicholas Hoult from Mad Max was in it. And then there's quite a few people that I'm leaving out, but I'm just going to go through it quickly. This is a must see. So I'm going to give you one quick movie to compare it to. Did I miss something? Oh yeah. Just a quick movie. If no one's ever seen The Last Supper, I believe it's 94. I might be off on the date, but around the early 90s. And that's Cameron Diaz and 4 other young up and comers that I just can't remember their names right now. But that is a fantastic movie with a ton of big cameos. And quite frankly, I will give you the premise of it, but they're a group of 5 college student liberals that start killing off extreme right-wing people by inviting them over to dinner and poisoning. That's the plot of The Last Supper. I do not want to tell you the plot of the menu because this movie is brand new. But let's just say this. He invites them there for their Last Supper, and that's as blatant as I'll make it. So the rest of it, though, is what makes this movie. And it, just like The Last Supper, which each guest, there was a different thing about them, right? Well, this guy invites this chef, I'm trying to think, but somewhere in the neighborhood of around, it's like 8 or 10 tables, and there's at least 2 at each table. So, 20, 24 guests, something like that, are at his restaurant by his invitation. That's the only way you can even eat here. And it's like $1,200 a plate. And each person at each table, not just each table, but each person at each table represents a different type of piece of shit in the world, is the best way to put it, right? And it is so fucking damn. That movie blew me away. Shock scenes, dark fucking humor from beginning, from the entire film, from beginning to end. It absolutely kept me interested. Ralph Fiennes was as normal, just his incredible self. Did you like it? Did you? So I got to know if you liked it. There, dildos. Let me know. But yeah. Oh, something happened here. I thought, when you say you've seen it, have you seen Last Supper, or have you seen Menu, or have you seen both? I'm curious. So regardless, all I can say is, I was blown away. The messages, that is a must fucking see. And I would say, if you can afford it, or if you have the means, go see it in the theaters, because it makes it just a little bit better. In fact, we went to go see it on a micro theater, so it wasn't like huge. It wasn't RPX or anything, but it still filled up the eyes, and it was quite the old. Yeah, okay, you have seen it. Yep, it was, dude. It's fucking Last Supper is awesome, and this one is as good as Last Supper. I have always given Last Supper, I always said it was a 10 when I wasn't actually rating them. I would give Last Supper still a 90 in my world. The Menu equaled it, and I'm giving it a 90. It was superb due to all the shit that it threw in your face. If you walk away from that movie and haven't checked yourself and thought to yourself, what the fuck have I done that's, let's just say below moral standards, well, then you didn't watch the movie and you didn't get the message. But I don't think that's possible, truly. Fuck it. That thing is not burning, so we're not going to waste our time with that anymore. And we'll just finish the show off with this bowl. So, menu, solid 90. Avatar 2. So, let me first say this was one that was bittersweet. One of Skylar's favorite movies growing up, him and his brother, was Avatar. We went to go see it several times. We owned it. We literally bought a 3D TV so we could watch it 3D when it came out. So you can imagine that going to see it, those feelings were there. Now, I don't want to spoil it, and I mean that because this one is definitely one that you should go see. First of all, it's fucking long. Okay. So before we even go any further, let's just give you IMDb gives it a 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 78% fresh. Metacritic, 67%. 93% of Google users like the film. Okay. The parallels that this movie hits are fucking stupid. That's all I'll say. And if you've seen it or you're going to see it, you will absolutely understand that if you know my story. Now, aside from that portion of it, the story was incredible. The all the actors were right back in their element. It didn't feel like they had skipped 11 years, you know? Because when I watched it, if you don't already know when you watch this, you got to watch it knowing that this is the first of 4 movies, right? So there'll be a total of 5 avatars. They're all scheduled. So the first one's 22 and then 4, 6, 8, right? So 28 will be the finale of this whole second story. So the first story they did in a little over 3 hours, right? The second story they're doing in 4 parts, and the first one was 3 hours and 15 fucking minutes long. But I get it. I was thinking about it afterwards, and I was trying to think. I probably could have gotten rid of about maybe 15 minutes and not hurt the movie, but that's about it because it wasn't a lot of filler. It was constant story, you know. I try not to give any spoilers. So this is what you'll find out if you read the synopsis, but this is now about his kids. So you have to understand that's obviously set in the future in comparison to Avatar. And they basically did it like the same amount of time later, essentially, right? It's like, I think it's like 10 years later or something, maybe a little bit more than that. I think it is more than that, but either way, you know, they've had kids and he has kids. So the first, like, fuck, dude, I want to say maybe 30 minutes was really telling the story of how him and what's her face, you know, had kids and his story and all that. Again, not going to give you the details. These are the same things you can read in the synopsis before you go in the sense of the details that I'm giving you. But they quickly told the story. They quickly caught you up. They quickly got into it. They did not waste any time. And literally, like I said, I tried to think about it. There wasn't a whole lot that could have been done without. Each part, it wasn't filler. It was another piece that was needed, you know, for later on. Now, one thing I'll say is he did not write this one by himself. He did have help in comparison to the first one, which he did write by himself. I'm almost positive. This one had multiple writers. And I mean, it has a ton of people. Just to remind you, Sam Worthington, Zoe Celinda. Is that right? Is that how you pronounce her name? I don't even know. I just call her Zoe Hot. Kate Winslet, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang. Stephen Lang, by the way, Vin Diesel, believe it or not, is in it. Stephen Lang, I don't know if you remember, but that's the Colonel from the first one. He's in all 5 movies. That's all I'm going to tell you. And how they did that, you could probably figure out some of it for yourself. Michelle. Yeah, Michelle Yeoh. Yeah, whatever her name is. Cast, everybody did great. The sea creatures looked extremely real, but my son brought up something that I kind of thought about afterwards. And I think I agree with him. This is Skylar's twin. He's like, they seemed almost more cartoonish looking than, or more computer looking, if you will, than in the original, in the sense of the blue creatures. And I kind of get what he was saying. It's almost like, I know this may sound funny, but I wonder if they found a way to render it nearly as much without costing so much so that they could do more, because it relied heavily on these blue creatures and their makeup. So I am curious about that. But overall, here's what happened. We did see this on RPX, which is IMAX, and we did see it 3D, real 3D. And it was incredible. When you're watching it like that, it really doesn't much matter to me. What I mean by that is, even back in the day when I watched Toy Story, the very first computer animated movie, right? I remember watching, we were watching it, and I was sitting there with my girlfriend at the time, and at one point she goes, "God, how do they do the lighting there?" And I was like, this is animation. You remember, it's animation. Because you really get lost when it's 3-dimensional and they're doing well with the shadows and the lighting and all that stuff. When all that is being done properly, you truly get lost that it is not real. It's just a different type of real. So even though my son said that, and I can see that, it didn't really subtract for me any, because I was totally engulfed from the movie, from the moment the movie started to the moment the movie ended. And a lot of people say it was better than the first. I don't think it was better than the first, in my opinion. But it was good. And it was, what's nice is they did not leave you with some ridiculous cliffhanger that's going to be 2 years before you get the answer. Which they did, by the way, in Lord of the Rings. So if you remember, we had to wait a whole year. Then went 2 years, but you had to wait a whole year for the cliffhanger. Matrix, we had to wait a whole 6 months. They haven't done that yet, because they didn't do it on this one. Now, again, there's 3 more movies. Not to say that they didn't leave a lot of questions, but I'm talking about a cliffhanger. Okay. A lot of questions, yes, but that happens. To give you, for instance, one of the most famous cliffhangers from when I was a kid was Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars did not have a cliffhanger. They blew up the fucking Death Star. Everything was great. Ahoo. Next movie, though, fucking everything sucked ass at the end of it, and the fucking whole universe was about to end. Again, I think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to do 4 movies and not take the opportunity to do a cliffhanger on one of them. I just think he's going to save it probably for maybe either 3 to 4, or most likely it'll be 4 to 5. From movie 4 to 5, you'll be like, what the fuck? So just remember I said that. But there was an appropriate amount of questions, no cliffhanger. And I'm now looking forward to seeing where it's going to go. It's set it up very well. You get a real good idea of exactly what's going to transpire, in the sense of the foundation is set and it all makes sense. And I guarantee you this, knowing Cameron, he has quite a few surprises left for us for movies 3, 4, and 5. You can bet your sweet bottom dollar on that. So overall, what do I give Avatar 2, or Avatar: The Way of Water? I give it a solid 84. It was good. It was very good. It was definitely a must see. Definitely need to see that 3D IMAX, as big as you can fucking get. But that's going to be expensive, but it is worth it. It is worth it. So, next one, Bones and All. This was a little independent movie. At least it felt like an independent. It didn't feel like big blockbuster at all. Yeah, 14.1 million. That's independent dollars. Timothy Chalamet Chalamet, whatever his name is. I'll have to learn how to pronounce these fucking people's names, I guess, right? Taylor Russell, Mark Rylance, which Mark Rylance, for those of you who don't know the name, that's the dude from Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One, who's the old dude that in that the old game developer guy, right? That everybody loves so much. That's that guy. The rest of them don't really matter. I mean, I'm not saying they don't, but I don't mean they don't matter, but they aren't huge names. Bones and all. 7 gets, that's funny. That's 2 tonight that we talked about on IMDb that get a flat 7. So flat 7, which on IMDb is, by the way, a pretty decent score for those of you who know that service. Rotten Tomatoes gives it 82% fresh, 74% on Metacritic, and 76% of Google users liked it. So let's kind of talk about it. If you think this is a spoiler, I'll just give you possible spoiler alert. But here it is. This isn't a vampire movie, but if you love vampire movies, you got to go see this one. Okay. It is a whole new, what's the word? It's a whole new take on a whole new, lore, if you will. Something I've never heard. It was what seemed like someone just had a really great imagination and said, what if? I always like a good what if. It was also nice to see that dude that I was just talking about, Rylance, playing somebody that was very off character from him. I don't want to say much more because then I might be spoiling it, but it was very off character in consideration to what he's done most recently, right? Ending was a little odd. It almost feels, because there was 2 now, and there's another one I'll talk about, and both of these feel the same way to me when I talk about the ending. It sometimes feels like a director and or a writer, if it's the same person, get to a point and they know that it's time to end. They just don't know exactly how to do it. So it's become very commonplace to end it in such a fashion. And this all started, I know you're like, in what fashion? I'm going to give it to you. No Country for Old Men. If you remember the way that movie began and the way it ended, it was very abrupt on both ends. And that seems to be, in this day and age, that's becoming more popular. This one had that ending that, some people may not like. I'll just put it to you like that. But Bones and all, very good. I enjoyed it. It was different. I give that a solid 72, same as my birth year. 72. It's definitely one that's worth seeing. Oops. Sorry. It's definitely one that's worth seeing. I don't know if I would pay theater prices, but I would pay $20 to own it forever, one time. It was worth $20. All right, next on the list. Another sequel, another number 2 as well. Oh, faux pas. I take that back. Actually, this is the 4th sequel to this film. For those of you who don't know which one I'm talking about A Christmas Story. So there is A Christmas Story. There's My Summer Story. There's A Christmas Story 2. And now, most recently, there is A Christmas Story Christmas. This one was starring Ralphie. And just real quick, I'll go over the numbers real quick. 6.8 on IMDb, 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, 55% Metacritic, so they didn't like it, but 87% of Google users did like it. Peter Billingsley came back and reprised his role as Ralphie. And then you had a few people that I don't know, although Julie Haggerty, it was great. She played the mom. She took over as playing Ralphie's mom. And if you don't know her, she's the chick from Airplane 1 and 2. And then everybody else is basically nobody's because they were the same, pretty sure the exact same kids that starred in that movie. And most of them didn't go on to have, movie careers. Peter did. But to get right into it, I was a little reluctant, and then I watched the trailer, and I was like, okay, I see where the story's going. Let me watch it. It was extremely heartwarming. I was surprised. That I'll tell you right out of the gate. I was surprised. So it was much better than I thought it could be. Peter was better than I thought he was going to be. And the story touched me in a way that it actually, it gave me a tear. Now, of course, there was some serious fucking parallels in this one, just like all of them. If I didn't mention it, Bones and all had fucking ridiculous parallels. I mean, I can't even tell you people how many parallels are going on with everything that I see lately, whether it's a movie, a TV show, whatever the case may be. But this one was was not lack of it. Let's just say that. But what it was great is it had all the great stuff that made the original one funny, but in a new way. And, sometimes you can repeat what you did in a way that's more paying homage versus trying to repeat it. And they did the first one versus the latter, and they did it well. I fucking laughed out loud quite a few times. I enjoyed the story. The story was solid. It directly correlated with the first one. And I would say something else, except I would end up, and I think that's why they didn't name it what I would say, because if they'd named it that, then everybody would get it. But it was really awesome, and it gave a whole new meaning to the first one. In fact, after I watched it, I went back and watched the first one again, just because I was like, oh man, I want to see that one again now. So Ralphie and the gang, for Ralphie's Christmas as an adult, solid 82. That one, funny enough, was on HBO Max, so I didn't have to pay for it. But I would have been more than happy to go see that in the theaters. They just didn't show it at the fucking theater that I had the deal on. So had to watch that on HBO Max. That was one of the few. That, Troll, and Banshees, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. I watched all those from home. But A Christmas Story, Christmas, definitely worthy. Oops. Oh, did it really? Don't you love it when technology says, hey, man, screw Jews, we're going to screw Jews. All right, so I did Troll, Violent Night, Devotion, A Christmas Story, Christmas, Menu, Strange World, Avatar, Bones and all. All right, so the only one left is the Banshees. That's the one we're talking about now, right? The Banshees of Inisherin, if I'm pronouncing that right, Inisherin. That's as good as I can do it. This one I was really excited about. Before I get into any of the reviews or the what other people already said, if y'all haven't seen In Bruges, that is an absolute must. And the movie I said there was N-I-N Bruges, B-R-U-G-E-S. In Bruges is a movie from 06, 07. Funny enough, technically it's one of those that I call a fringe Christmas movie because the whole thing takes place at Christmas time in Bruges. Denmark, is it? It's whatever the hell it is. Anyway, the guys that made that, the two main stars, Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, teamed up with the same guy that wrote and directed that, Martin McDowell, teamed up again with him. And, many years later, talking about, was that like 14, 15 years later, and made this movie called The Banshees of Inisherin. Well, this just like the other movie, it's a fucking dark comedy. So here's what other people are saying. IMDb gives it a solid 7.9, which is the exact same rating, by the way, that Bruges gets, which is a very high score on IMDb when you're talking about, you know, in comparison. What I mean by that is, if you go to their top 250, I think their highest ranking movie of all time isn't even a 9. In TV shows, it gets up to 9. But if you look up, damn, how did I forget it? Shawshank Redemption, you will find that it's like a 8 point something. I think it's like 8.4 or something, 8.5, something like that. And that's number one all time rated movie, right? So a 7.9 is very solid when it comes to a film. Rotten Tomatoes, 97% fresh. And when you hear the premise of the story, I think you'll agree. Metacritic, 87%. And Google users, 83%. By the way, I don't look at all this bullshit anymore. When I say anymore, there was times where I would still peek at reviews. I now am deciding to always, as you know, doing this flick dick thing, I want the investigation to be as pure as I can. And if I go in with any skewed thought other than what the trailer gave me, that's not really a good investigation. And I did not look at any of these. I was just simply excited because I was literally watching In Bruges when I found out about this one. Every year, Christmas, I watch my Christmas movie. In Bruges is one of them. So as I'm watching one, here's this other one. I'm looking up them, and I see what their next movie is, and I was like, "Holy fucking shit!" It's like the whole team got together, right? It does not take place at Christmas, but it came out at Christmas time this year, so that makes it a Christmas movie this year. Real simple. Takes place about 100 years ago during the Irish, because it's in Dublin or near Dublin, during the Irish Civil War, or in the beginnings of it. And it's two friends who have been friends forever on this small island, and one of them decides he no longer wants to be the other guy's friend. And it's such a big deal because the guy's dull. That's what it is. You're too dull for me, and I want to move on. He even tells him, if you talk to me again, and every time you talk to me hereafter, I'm going to lop off a finger and throw it at you. This is an absolute must-see. If you have the ability to see it, do. It's streaming somewhere. It says HBO Max, but I don't know that for a fact. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you may be able to see. I bought it because I'm, if it says it on the Google search, most likely it is there. So you can watch this one. But my wife and I love In Bruges, so we bought this, and we absolutely thought this one was great. Although the ending was very different than the way this director had ended previous movies. It was more like that bones and all ending I was telling you about, that was somewhat abrupt and a little bit, again, to finish my thought from the last time, I think that writers get to a point where they're like, I really don't know how to end this. I know I've written this great story, comical, dark, very thought-provoking, which Banshee was, extremely thought-provoking. Even though it takes place 100 years ago, it still has a lot to say about society today and about what's important and what's not important. And they don't know where to end it. And it's like they just end it abruptly and go, hey, what would you do with it? How do you see it playing out after this moment? I don't know if I like that. There's times where it works, and there's times where I think it's great. For instance, in No Country for Old Men, when that happened, I remember we weren't married yet, but it was my wife and I that went to go see that, and there was 3 older women who were all in their 70s, mid 70s, maybe a little bit older. And at the end, if y'all know that movie, at the end, we're getting up, we're collecting our stuff, and the one lady looks at her, she's like, I do not understand the ending of that. Excuse me, young man. I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it means that, because I gave them what I consider to be a reasonable thing. And when I saw that one, it was, shit happens. There's no rhyme or reason to life as it is, and that's what these guys were trying to say. That's their perspective, that shit happens and it's just crazy. So the fact that you ended in the middle of a moment, if you will, that's normally finished in film and started in the middle of a moment that's normally started in film, that's the Coen brothers. That's part of what they do when they're looking at the human psyche. And those ladies liked it. They were like, I don't get it. They were like, oh, I love your answer. I understand it, but I don't get it. And here I am now, this is what, 10 plus years later. And I'm like, I get it. I just don't know if I like it. I thought that just to give you on the two movies that we watched, reviewed tonight or investigated, Bones and All, I think it could have ended differently and I would have liked more, whereas it kind of worked for Banshees. It was acceptable enough to where I still loved the movie. Now, funny enough, IMDb is giving it equal ranks, as far as the users, in comparison to In Bruges. They both score 7.9. My personal opinion is that In Bruges is one of those that's like a 99. That is one of the most dear movies to my heart. Banshee did not make it there. I give it an 89. It was great, and it brought up a lot of the same type of thought-provoking questions in regards to human nature, the human psyche, what we're fucking here for, why are we here, what is the best way to use our time when we are here, right? Having said all that, I still think Bruges is the better film, but Banshees was fucking incredible. It is an absolute must see. I hope that all of you get a chance to watch it. You should. And then we can discuss it, because it'll make you cringe and it'll make you laugh. It's one of those. So yeah, solid 89. Great film. Loved it. Did I miss some? Hey man, sorry, Grizz. All is well. I'm doing pretty bad. Doing pretty well. And I missed a couple here from you, dildos. All that bad humor. Let's see. Besides the one Asian lady, right? High frame rate. Are you talking about in Avatar? I'm assuming you're talking about Avatar. High frame rate. That was my guess. So, anywho, a lot of great movies. And to end it, because I've gone a little bit long tonight and trying to get all those reviews out and as quickly as possible. The holiday season has sucked a big chocolate starfish. I probably as depressed as I can remember being. I don't remember being this stressed out about my future and my finances living in Colorado. I can tell you that. Things have gotten, let's just say things have gotten fairly bleak, and it is possible that you'll see some background changes. I will continue to find a way to do what I'm doing, because I feel like this is a must and cannot be stopped. And I know Skylar doesn't want me to stop, so I'm not going to. But, my mom sent me a passage from a guy who wrote a book on grief, and the way the guy put it, I think, was probably most appropriate. So I'll share it with you. But I'm living between joy and pain, and that he also said something in there. I can't remember the way he said it, but I'll say it my way. The pain is never, ever going to get any fucking better. And the part of being able to have joy again is to come to an acceptance that pain is never going to get better. I'm not going to get over this. Today was another proving point, because I continue to think of it. And when I do and think of that moment, my heart drops, but it dropped again today. And I must share this with you all, because I found out today, still haven't gotten the autopsy report in hand, but I was talking to the detective and I had to find out. And Skylar, his neck was broken and his spinal cord was severed immediately. So the only The only real savings grace that I have right now is that my son didn't suffer. But I think about that and it fucking makes me want to flip out. I want to destroy things. I want to rip this fucking room apart. Because my baby boy broke his neck. And that just fucking kills me. And I am really, really between joy and pain because I have 3 more that are blood sons. I have 2 more that call me pops and look up to me. I don't have a choice in whether or not I'm going to live. So the only choice that I get to make now is how good am I going to make my remaining years, you know? So I have to find a way to put that pain aside. You know, part of that is getting the closure. I need to still read the autopsy report as hard as that's going to be because I need it to just be done. You know, yeah, it is what it is. And it just, you know, all I can tell you is doing this, I do this more for the world than I do it for me. And that's why I know Skylar doesn't want me to stop. And I know that I have touched a lot of people because those people, I've touched a lot of people's hearts and souls because those people continue to reach out and they do as much as they possibly can to help and support me. And that's action. That's not words. That's their words backed by action. I can't tell you how fucking appreciative and thankful I am for those people to be in my life at this particular time. And it is no coincidence because every single one of these people I'm talking about have suffered loss in the last 45 days equal to or not or close to what I have. And what I mean by equal to is the relationship where it was, you know, a parent or a guardian or a son or a daughter. You understand? Death is part of this world. And it's never been thrown more in my face than in the last 90 days. I can tell you that. This is the most death that I have experienced in my entire life. And I literally was cracking today and I'm like, how strong do you think I am, God? You know, how much more do you think you can put on me before I just fucking crumble? I guess we're going to find out because I then read a passage that continues to make me believe and helps me remember. And hopefully I did not erase it. I try not to erase these. So one of them was, you are stronger than you think. You have gotten through every bad day in your life, and you're still here. And there was another one. When you feel like giving up, remember why you held on for so long in the first place. And the last one that I just got like 2 hours ago. And when I say 2 hours ago, I was in the midst of my freak out. Give yourself some credit for the days you made it when you thought you couldn't. Yeah. I needed to hear that one. Because there was already a lot of days that I thought I wasn't going to make it. And here I am, 50 fucking years. And 150 plus days later. Skylar's picture, by the way, we'll be back soon. Like I said, we just had it downstairs in the living room for Christmas, so probably going to bring it back because I kind of miss having him back here. Plus, you know, the artwork now includes him, and it will for at least this season. We'll see what happens next season. But, you know, for those of you who do support me, I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't, maybe think about it. Either way, I love all of you. I know that all this is happening for a reason. I will make it. I have made it this far. And as long as I'm breathing, I'll keep making it. Some of my worst nights and days, I can't tell you. I fucking don't even like going to sleep now because I don't sleep. So that's just it's like 6.5 hours of fucking torture. But this too shall pass. There will be a brighter day. That has remained true for my entire life. When it gets bleak, it always lights up on the other side unless you give up. Well, my wrists aren't cut yet, and I haven't loaded the shotgun, so I'm still here. And all I can tell you is that means that I'm not giving up. Never give up, never surrender. One of my favorite quotes from the final year of the 1900s, 1999's Galaxy Quest. Never give up, never surrender. So we'll end it on that note. To blaze or not to blaze, there is no question. There is only to get high, to get by, high in the sky. I love all of you. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for the support. I will see you again very, very soon. And get back over to the right button, right? That's just select. Today's Tuesday, so I'll be back on Thursday and again Saturday, and I am trying to keep myself back to my schedule, just to have some kind of something stable in my life, right? Love you folks. See you. I'll also start tweeting again real soon. I haven't been on Twitter. If it matters, just a real quick note. God, you fucked it up. Got to find something that's equivalent. So anywho, have a wonderful evening, folks. Peace.
You can't have my phone number unless we running up the digits. Let me meditate. I just need a couple minutes. Tryna low bomb me, my cojones to the big ass. Bitch, I get high. I ain't looking at the clock still.